Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Remote No Pressure Podcast. We're so excited that you chose to be with us for another week, and we have a great episode for you with legendary artist, fellow Texan, writer extraordinaire, just an all-around great guy, Paul Puckett. Great interview. Welcome to the podcast. Let's light the fire. Well, tonight on the Remote No Pressure Podcast, we have Paul Puckett on the horn with us. Thank you very much for joining us, Paul.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm very excited. Everyone knows you for your paintings. I mean, you're in the Drake all the time, but also you're a musician as well, correct?
Yeah, I try to be. I more say I dabble in it, if you will. I've always kind of been around music, so it's definitely a part of my life in one way or another, for sure.
Well, tell us, before we get started and diving into that, tell us a little bit about fly fishing and how you came about this sport.
Well, I grew up with two granddads that loved fishing and a dad that loved fishing, so it was pretty much around me at all times. And my dad was a teacher, and in the summers they did trips to Europe with groups of kids, and my mom would go along as well because she wanted to go check out all the museums and all the things that Europe brings. So I would spend the summers in Tyler, Texas with my grandparents, and I'd spend 4 or 5 days with one and then get switched to the other one, and just kept doing that rotation for a month. And that basically what that meant was every day that I wanted to go fishing, one of my granddads would want to go fishing too. So I mean, I grew up every summer in Tyler fishing for bass on our family's farm ponds and anything we could pull up to and fish in. So I mean, that's what got me into it. And then my granddad would always be waving around this fly rod, and I never understood why he was doing something so different from me when I was thinking, you know, I had a cork and an earthworm or a plastic worm, and he's throwing this thing around, getting all tangled. And he always told me one day when I mastered the regular fishing, he would teach me how to throw the fly rod. And that day never came because he passed away when I was 13. So that summer we took my grandmother to the Ozarks, to Branson, you know, where every senior citizen goes to listen to, you know, these shows in Branson and all that kind of stuff. So, but my first memory of throwing a fly rod, my dad was videotaping it. Actually, I still have the video of me at 13 throwing my granddad's fly rod and couldn't even cast even 15 to 20 feet where all these trout were rising. And it was so frustrating. And from that day on, I was totally hooked.
You had to figure it out, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I had that, you know, we went to the Bass Pro that was in, not just north of Branson in Missouri, Springfield, Missouri. And, you know, I came back with the White River Fly Shop catalog that had all these flies and these colorful, you know, 6 months later, I was trying to tie flies, and it never stopped from there. So I was 13 or 14 when that happened. I was totally obsessed.
Now, where at in Dallas did you live?
In North Dallas. Grew up in the Highland Park area. My dad was a teacher there, and was fortunate enough to grow up there, and definitely had a good childhood. And we had a little pond in Turtle Creek. We'd always go run around and fish all the different ponds in that area, and that definitely helped me keep the dream alive of fishing, for sure, in the city.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's not too far from SMU, is it?
No, it's right there. I mean, I probably grew up about 1.5 miles away from SMU.
Okay, great neighborhood. I went to college in Dallas, and I used to work at Starbucks not too far from there when I was in college.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I love it.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I was very, very fortunate to have grown up there. You know, when I went to North Texas, up in Denton, whenever people would ask me where I grew up, I'd say Dallas, and they'd say, "Where in Dallas?" And I'd say North Dallas. Then they'd say, "Where in North Dallas?" And I'd say Highland Park. I'd be like, and they'd be like, "Oh," you know. So there's definitely a stigma attached to growing up there. But
I didn't want to say that, you know, Paul. I didn't want to say, "Oh," no. But you know, yeah.
And I've grown up with it. I'm used to it, and you know, I was very fortunate to have grown up there, and you know, that's what it is. So
that's awesome. Yeah, it's a great place, great childhood. That whole Dallas area is just that whole Metroplex is just an amazing place to be.
Yeah, and you said, and where in Texas were you from? You said the town, but I can't recognize where that was.
I was born in Bay City, Texas, just south of Houston. I moved
Okay.
to St.
Yeah.
Augustine, Texas, just out of Nacogdoches, Lufkin area.
Okay.
For
Yeah.
like 10 years. My parents split. I moved back to Houston and went, finished middle school, high school there. Ended up in Dallas, lived there for 4 years, going to college. And then,
Okay.
yeah, so I've been all around the great state. I've lived everywhere but West Texas. So, but
Yeah.
north,
Well, there's
south,
not,
east, yeah.
I guess, depending on who you talk to, West Texas is pretty much West Texas. I love it. It's beautiful, but I don't know that I'd want to so much live there, but I can definitely respect it for sure.
For sure, yeah, and I was very excited to talk to you because talking to a fellow Texan who is no longer living in Texas. I mean, how did you end up? You're in Charlotte now, right?
Charleston.
Charleston. You're in Charleston
close
now.
to Charlotte.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of have a pretty interesting path. It's been a fun path. So when I was in Dallas and going to North Texas, I worked at a fly shop. They hired me at about 19 years old at a store called West Bank Anglers, and it was in Inwood Village in Dallas. And I worked there basically, and it went through a name change too, and it was connected to the shop in Wyoming, Jackson, Wyoming. So through the people in Wyoming coming to check on the store and always talking to them on the phone, I kind of maintained a relationship with those people. So when I finally graduated college somehow in 2000, I had decided to be that kid that wanted to move out west, try guiding. So the plan was to work in a shop for a year. And throughout that year, I learned and found out real quick that guiding isn't really as much as it's cracked up to be. You have this like total fantasy idea that being a guide on the Snake River is this ultimate dream job. I got there and became friends with all those guys and learned the river. They taught me how to row the boats, and I was basically very well equipped for guiding physically, but mentally, there's no way. And those guys never get a day off. And here I was being a shop rat, working 4 12-hour days and having 3 straight days off where I could go fish and have fun. So that totally outweighed the whole concept of guiding. I'd go and have a 3-day vacation every week, so I did that for 4 years, and I never did the guiding thing. I did like half-day walk-in trips and those type of things and casting lessons. So I got the feel of that, which was all I needed. And then I moved I was going to move anyway. I was going to move to Denver, and then found myself following someone to Atlanta, and ended up being in Atlanta for 8 years. And I was always coming to Charleston. I was doing an art show called SEWE, Southeastern Wildlife Exposition. And I was meeting people here, going fishing. So I found myself in Atlanta, always daydreaming about being in Charleston. So finally, 6 years ago, I finally just moved here.
Wow.
So that was kind of the path. And along the way, like in Atlanta, I worked at a fly shop. I worked at the Fish Hawk. And then when I moved here to get my feet planted, I worked part-time in the Low Country Fly Shop too, about the same time that I was developing my art career, and also this flood tide company project we've been working on for a while. So figured Charleston was the place to do it.
So we've talked a little bit about how you got into fly fishing, how you got to Charleston there. Let's talk a little bit about how you got into art. Now, according to your bio, which we have posted up on our blog and our website at remotenopressure.com, you stated that when you were a kid, all you wanted to do was draw E.T. and the Miami Dolphins logo. Why the Miami Dolphins logo?
Yeah, I don't know, but I specifically remember like around, 80, 81, 82 is when Dan Marino, I was just fascinated with this guy because that's about when I started realizing what sports were, and I was about 5 or 6 years old. And that's when you start learning what football and baseball is, and you start really watching it. And I was, for some reason, the Miami Dolphins logo just, I don't know, for some reason resonated to me because it was this fish flying with a football helmet on, and I just would always draw that. And I was totally obsessed with E.T., and I was always drawing E.T. And I guess that was just my early days of trying to mimic something on paper and being obsessed with it to the point where I had to get it right. And for some reason, that Miami Dolphins logo and E.T. sticks in my mind. And And then it kind of transferred. I built models. My dad and I would always build model airplanes and model cars. And that definitely had something to do with my painting career today because I was fascinated with building something and making something to the final goal of it being what you wanted it to be. And, you're using your hands and that had a lot to do with it too. Building and painting models was something that I loved doing when I was a kid growing up. So I'm sure that has something to do with what I chose today as far as wanting to be an artist and creating things, if you will.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, looking at your paintings and what you're doing, there's a lot of detail. It's not for the faint of heart, so it's very tedious, I'm sure, and just making sure that you get it right, and you do a great job. Have you taken the Myers-Briggs test by any chance? That personality profile?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
No, and my wife's a school psychologist too, so maybe that's something she has in her bag.
I was just curious because my personality, it's like I don't pay attention to details, but would you say that your personality, you're a very detail-oriented person, even in your personal life, or?
No, not really. Like, I'm not real organized, and I wouldn't say I'm real detailed, but definitely when it comes to like drawing and art, like in my paintings, I try to be less detailed, and I'm slowly but surely accomplishing that. It's hard to do. Like, I've tried to get a lot looser. Like with my watercolors, I do the watercolor and I come back with water, just basically try to mess up the painting with water droplets, and so that's helped a lot. But with my drawing, I would say I'm definitely kind of more mechanically detailed in drawing and cross-hatching and all that kind of stuff, whether it's like with an ink pen or with a pencil. I'm definitely more technical when it comes to that.
Now, you went to North Texas. Did you study art, or is it all self-taught, or?
Well, it's basically self-taught. With like, whenever people ask me that, I never really know what the right answer is, because I definitely took art classes my whole life in high school, middle school, growing up, high school. And then in college, I went for advertising design, which basically is graphic design, advertising coming up. My plan was to do, logos and all that kind of stuff. And you had to do all the prerequisite stuff, drawing, figure drawing, and all the stuff that, kind of laid that foundation down. And I kept doing those classes too. So it wasn't really self-taught, but it was foundation taught. And then a lot of stuff I've learned on my own as I've gone forward. Every painting I do, I learn something new. Every project you learn, 2 or 3 new things, like what to do in the future and what not to do. So, everything is you kind of learn as you go.
Now, you got a degree then in advertising?
I ended up, what's funny is it ended up being my not major, but my minor, because I wasn't good at the concept side of advertising. Like, you make 5 billboards, you kind of come up with a concept. Every billboard is different, but it all belongs in the same family. I was not good at that. So they basically came to me and said, listen, this is probably just going to be your minor. You need to pick out a new major. So I did that, and that added about 1.5 years to my college timeline, which my parents love that one, but it ended up being sociology.
Okay.
So you have a degree. I finally got out.
You have a degree in sociology. You finished up there. And what made you think, I want to do this art thing as my career? This is what I want to do for a living. And did you ever doubt if it would work or not? Like, can I really make a go at this?
Well, when I moved to Atlanta, and this is after 4 years of being in Wyoming, I hardly painted in Wyoming. I was having a lot of fun. It was almost like a whole other college career. I basically fished and snowboarded and had fun and played music. And I worked on a couple art projects. And then when I moved to Atlanta, it was time to finally get the job. Like you had this idea that, okay, I goofed off basically for college, and I goofed off for 4 years in Jackson. Now it's time to figure out a career. And so I got a job in radio at Cats Radio, which was a New York conglomerate. And I was basically total low-level job, like dealing with ads and kind of organizing ad paperwork side of it. And I went to Jackson to go skiing and see some friends. And I came back and I was like, what the hell am I doing? Like, I have this ability to make these paintings. I'm still on the side. I was doing these fish paintings for people where I would, paint their trophy fish exactly the size of it and the color from the photo. And so I decided to go to the Fish Hawk in Atlanta and ask them if I could get a part-time job and then start painting on the side. And he said, no, we don't have anything for you. And then 3 days later, he called me, Gary Merriman. He called me and he said, well, we just had one of our guys go part-time. Would you want to take his other 3 days? And I was like, hell yes. So that started, and working at the Fish Hawk in Atlanta definitely opened up a lot of doors as far as meeting a lot of people. You're smack dab in a really good part of Atlanta. It's the best fly shop and the biggest fly shop in the Southeast. And people started kind of noticing some paintings I put up in there. And then, it started taking on a lot of momentum. I met a lot of people that work for certain magazines that would come in the shop and be like, hey, do you want to do a little illustration or can I put one of your paintings in there? So it just kind of picked up steam. I think you can be a great artist, but if you don't get out and make connections like any other job and meet the right people that will help you along the way, I don't know if you can do it, because being an artist, you need as much help as you can get. It's just the truth. You can be great, but it doesn't hurt to have a little help on the side.
You gotta hustle, man. Regardless of what your career is, you gotta hustle and work hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you get any? Did you ever get any crap from family or friends saying, "What are you doing, Paul? You need to use that degree"?
No. I think my parents knew a long time ago it was going to be. This is what I would do. They were probably more surprised when I got a job in radio. Like, what are you talking about? But it's funny when I moved to Jackson, Wyoming, and I told my dad after I finally finished school, he just, what do you mean you're moving to Wyoming? You finally finished school and you're moving to Wyoming? And I was like, yeah, I'm doing it. So he was really surprised with that. He wasn't like upset or against it. He was just more like, what the hell are we going to do with you? So he'd visit me all the time out there. And when I told him I was going to move to Atlanta, he was like, what the hell are you doing? You're moving to Atlanta. You're leaving this place. So he fell in love with it over 4 years too, and was pretty amazed that I was leaving. So it's just kind of one of those things you never can win,
Yeah, you got to do what you've got to do and stick to that.
Yeah. Absolutely, and it's definitely been an interesting path. I love Charleston. I'm glad I'm here, but I would have never gotten here if I hadn't moved to Jackson, Wyoming. So it's working out so far.
Looking back on all of your paintings, which one was your favorite, and which one was the hardest one to see go?
I lost the. I was talking about that actually the other day. Back in like early 2000s, back when I was in Atlanta, I started really getting better at what I was doing. I started doing paintings that I would look at and say to myself, man, I don't know if I can ever do this again. Like, I feel like I got lucky on this one. I'm about to sell this thing. Like, and you do the next one and the same conversation can go through your head. Finally, after that happens, you start kind of losing that worrisome feeling of, you start getting more confidence that you're going to be able to recreate another painting you're happy with. So it's okay to let that one go. And, it's a good question, because now I simply can't remember all the paintings I've done, which I don't know if that's good or bad, because people say, hey, you did a painting for my uncle, and it's called this. And I'll be like, oh my God, I don't remember which one that was. And, it's just the fact of the matter, does Dylan remember? I'm not comparing myself to Dylan, by the way, but does Dylan remember every song he's written,
Yeah.
But so, there's a painting recently I finished about a year ago that basically took me about 10 months to do. And it's called Mangrove Plantation. It's something I've always wanted to do. And because I've been going to Mexico the last 5 years, we always have lunch in a little mangrove forest. And these trees are so complicated. They're such cool trees, and there's so much going on. And my buddy Jeremy Clark took this photo that I saw, and it's the perfect photo. of what I wanted to paint. It's just these entangled mangrove trees and their roots, and that was probably the hardest painting I've ever done till the date. I'm not even sure if I'm even finished with it yet. I look at it sometimes, I'm like, okay, I need to mess with this and mess with that, but it's hanging over our mantle, and I don't know if it's anything I'll ever sell. So I guess that defeats what I just told you about 2 minutes ago about how I don't want to sell a certain painting but I mean, I just love this piece, so I don't know if it'll ever sell or if I'll ever let it sell. So we'll see.
Do you ever have people come up to you and interpret your paintings and you're like, how the heck did you get that out of that painting?
No, I mean, what I do, sporting art in general, and it kind of goes back to the argument of Remington and Russell, where Remington was always devalued as not an artist, more of he was always fighting this stigma that he was not a true artist, that he was just an illustrator, because he was illustrating what he saw when he'd go on trips out west. He'd come back, use his photos to create these paintings. And then you had Charles Russell, which talent-wise was a couple steps below Remington, but Charles Russell was living that culture, living the cowboy life, and painting every day what he was living. So, in my life, I'm living it, and sporting art is kind of considered more of an illustrative, art compared to like a typical fine artist. So, I don't know. I feel like I've kind of wandered off the path of what the real question was, but I don't know. I'm trying to do my thing, and I consider myself kind of in between a fine artist and an illustrator, and I'm sometimes get lost in the fact that I like to try so many different things that I don't even know what I'm really that great at or good at, because I'm trying so many different techniques and different styles.
Yeah,
but it's fun. I can't stop.
That's awesome. That's what's so great. It's like you're just doing what you're doing your thing, man, and it's amazing. Now, you just recently had an article on the Drake in Winter, but also didn't you and Bob White and a couple other characters end up somewhere in at some kind of writers retreat? Yeah,
I've been very fortunate in the last few years to become friends with like guys that, I mean, I grew up like idolizing these guys, and Bob White's one of the more recent guys that, whose work I just love, and he's such a good guy, and I call him a friend to this day. And Eldridge Hardy, I've been able to go fishing with him a few times, and then 2 years ago, Eldridge and I and Bob were all together in the Keys, and that was awesome. And then lucky enough to go to Cuba last year with Eldridge Hardy, and it's been really cool. And the trip you're talking about was, I guess it was a year and a half ago, we got invited to Von Cochran's Black Fly Lodge down in Abico.
Mm-hmm.
And it was Peter Corbin, Bob White, and Vaughn, and Mike Savlin. And we were down there, and basically we fished every day, and then half the day we kind of come back to the lodge and just talk about art. And one day we all got to work on this big painting at the same time, and we did each other's styles and Vaughn had kind of pre-drawn out all of our faces, so we couldn't work on our own face. So I actually worked on Vaughn's face, and it turned out to be this really cool piece. I don't know. I think he's going to give us all prints, and I think he was going to put the original in a shop down in Jacksonville. But it was a very rewarding experience, and I had one of the best days on the water I've ever had with Peter Corbin with permit. We hooked 3 permit in about an hour and a half, so that was pretty damn cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a really cool experience. We had so much fun, and hopefully we can return and do that same thing and kind of look back and do it again in like 5 years.
Yeah, that was an interesting article, an interesting piece. Why do you think, I think fly fishing more than a lot of other art and wing shooting, more than in a lot of other sports, tends to draw a lot of artists. And we've had Bob White on the show, actually. He was one of our first guests, actually. I think he was like episode 3 or 4 because he's such a gracious guy, you know.
Okay, cool. I'll have to go back and listen to it.
Yeah. Well, what do you think it is about fly fishing and wing shooting that attracts artists?
I think because, and I've wondered the same thing too, and I don't think I've ever pinpointed the right answer, but I think some of my best memories with whether it's my dad or granddads or friends are when I've been out fishing mainly. I'm not a huge hunter, but I've done, a little bit of it. I love, going out with sporting dogs and quail and all that stuff. But some of my best memories are either while we're fishing or hunting or the 2 or 3 hours after that talking about it. So I think when you see a painting that reminds you of that, I think you instantly want it, or you instantly think about it, or you get the print. I think it's because those pieces of art bring back that memory that you had. Like a good song. A good song instantly takes you back. I think sporting art does the same exact thing to that person that loves, whether it's that fishing or that place or whatever. So I get people that want commission paintings of a photo where they and their dad were catching a tarpon that day, or, a guy and his brother or sister or whatever from that place. It's just, they wanted to get taken back to that memory.
What song does it for you?
What song?
Yeah.
Man. Right now, it's always different, I love Ryan Bingham. I've been listening to a lot of the Haller Brothers boys, the Wrinkleneck Mules. Been listening to that a lot. Been listening to Mandolin Orange quite a bit as well. And then Guy Clark, Towns Van Zandt, all that stuff is awesome. James McMurtry.
Now you grew up. You're similar age as me. Did you grow up listening in college and high school to Robert Earl Keen at all, or?
Oh yeah, that was all college stuff. Jack Ingram, in '93, I had a couple of guys I played baseball with, and my dad was into music, so he had a little recording studio at our house. And a couple of the guys that were playing music at the time wanted to come over and use my dad's recording studio, and they were recording like some Jack Ingram songs. It's like, who's this guy? So I really latched on to Jack Ingram. And then Robert Earl Keen, Live at Dinner #2 or whatever came out probably around then, and then we got obsessed with all that Texas Red Dirt stuff. And Denton, all those guys would come through there.
Yeah, Red Dirt, Oklahoma and Texas and all those guys, and that could be a whole other episode talking about that, because that's really my jam, because they have their own genre. I mean, it is country, but it's Americana, but it's kind of not.
Yeah.
And I mean, the Texas music scene, that Red Dirt scene, because now it's gone into Oklahoma and stuff, but I mean, they've just got some killer music that comes out of there,
Yeah, like Turnpike Troubadours right now are just crushing it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And they deserve it. I mean, they're awesome. Their songwriting is so catchy. The only other person that writes songs like that, it's just a little bit different now, but, Rhett Miller from Old 97s was such a creative songwriter. And this guy from Turnpike Troubadours is so creative. It's just incredible how they write these songs.
Yeah, and it's funny because, like you said, whenever you see that painting and it takes you right back to after you were fishing or while you were fishing, and sometimes you hear those songs, and especially, being so far from Texas, it's that thing that connects me home, and I have those memories,
Yeah, absolutely. Like we've got kind of a new barbecue place here in Charleston called Lewis Barbecue.
Okay.
And the guy, the pitmaster, John Lewis, he worked 3 or 4 years at that barbecue place in Austin that's huge now. I can't remember what it's called, but it's like he has a mile-long line out the door. Franklin's, yep.
Yeah.
And he is now here in Charleston, and the place is amazing. The place just it feels like Green Hall when you walk in it. It kind of has the same kind of feel as that. but it's got brisket the way it should be, and they're always playing like Texas music. When I go in there, I get a Shiner Bock beer,
Yes.
and I feel right at home for an hour. You know, so
yeah, that's awesome.
You know, we all get we're prideful Texans, you know, so we got to kind of get in our little Texas nest every now and then.
It's funny because I moved to Michigan in 2002. And I could not get a decent taco anywhere, and I couldn't cook, or I couldn't find brisket, real brisket, the way that Texans eat it.
Yeah,
you know? They all have sugar on it, and I was like, no, just like I want salt and pepper, and the right way, So I learned, and it became an obsession to cook brisket the right way, and now I can cook a pretty mean brisket.
That's awesome. Yeah, I haven't quite gotten there yet. I can do a pork. Smoke a pork butt pretty good, and the turkey. And I'm kind of scared to do the brisket, honestly, because I feel like I might start getting addicted to buying an $80 piece of meat every week, trying to make it happen.
Well, the thing is, you got to get it at Costco. This the cheapest place, like $2.99 a pound, which is still kind of expensive, but
okay, that's not bad though.
I mean, in Texas at HEB, sometimes growing up, we'd get it for like $1 a pound or something, but
yeah. HEB, that's right.
It's my first job. I worked at HEB stacking groceries.
Nice. Nice. That's always a good first job, though. You always hear all the millionaires. We used to pack groceries as a kid.
Yeah, we'll see how that works out.
Hey, we've still got time, right?
Yeah, we do. We do got time.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
Do you guys get Bluebell ice cream over there?
Yeah, we can find it. Remember when they had that shortage a year ago because they got the sort of salmonella breakout in there and they had to shut it down for 6 months?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we can find it here, but I remember it was out of the shelves for a while. Yeah. But I'm in no position to be eating ice cream these days. I'm trying to lose weight right now. So
you and me both, brother. You and me both. Well, man, I could just hang out with you forever, man. I could just talk all night.
Oh, dude, it's easy when you start bringing up Texas and all. And people, so we do our podcast. Whenever I start talking about Texas, everyone's like, "All right, man, like here we go." So
yeah,
it's just the way we are.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I took my wife. She's from Michigan. I took her down to the Alamo this past summer for the first time. And she took the tour, and she was kind of hesitant. She's like, okay, she's kind of, we got 2 boys. I wanted them to know their heritage, And so I take them there, and she's kind of like, okay, she's very, very gracious. And she's just like, I'm just going to go along. And by the time we were done there, she's like, holy cow, I could totally see why Texans are so proud. The whole story of how they became a nation, And she was impressed. And it was like, it's amazing when you know the history and, it's just really cool. I could talk about that for a long time.
Yeah, that's a cool story for sure. For sure. It's definitely unique.
Well, thank you very much for spending some time with us, Paul. If someone wanted to get a hold of you, if someone wanted to buy a piece of art or get one of their one of their fish painted or whatever, how would they get a hold of you, Paul?
Yeah, Paul. Well, the website's paulpuckettart.com with 2 T's. So paulpuckettart.com. And then if you want to email me, it's just throw Paul in front of that, Paul at paulpuckettart.com.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and we really appreciate you taking time with us.
Yeah, hey, I appreciate the thought and really enjoy the time, and thanks a lot. And maybe we'll see you at Jack's Burger House in Dallas sometime.
Yeah, man. Thanks a lot.
All right. Have a good one. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Paul, and thank you for joining us on another week of the Remote No Pressure Podcast. Be sure to check out our podcast every Sunday night. Go to our website, sign up for our mailing list. If you enjoy what you're listening to, leave us a review. It helps out tremendously. And until next time, go fishing.